About 1% of your DNA comes from an extinct human relative that no scientist has ever found. A bone, a tooth, or a fossil of. Researchers did not dig up a new skeleton to find it. They found it by reading patterns buried inside the genomes of people alive right now. The way you might reconstruct a demolished building from the shadow it left on the wall next door. That unknown ancestor interbred with the ancestors of every person alive today. More than 50,000 years ago, a second, far older relative left a mark too, splitting off the human family tree around 800,000 years ago. Though it never interbred with modern humans directly, it passed its DNA to us secondhand, in a much smaller dose, through the Denisovans. This story covers how you trace an ancestor without a single fossil. What these two ghost lineages actually left behind in the human genome. And how much weight a discovery like this can carry when there is no bone to point to. Every ancient human relative found before this one started the same way. With a physical fossil that scientists could date and pull ancient DNA from directly. That is exactly how Neanderthals and Denisovans were first confirmed. The new method, called trace and built by researchers at UC Berkeley and Johns Hopkins, skips the fossil requirement entirely. Instead of starting with a bone, it starts with hundreds of genomes from people alive today and builds what geneticists call an ancestral recombination graph. Essentially a family tree not of people but of individual stretches of DNA. Tracking which segments were inherited together and when they likely split apart. When a stretch of DNA shows up across unrelated people but does not match known human, Neanderthal, or Denisovan patterns, and the mismatch is old enough and shared widely enough to rule out coincidence. That leftover signal becomes the evidence itself. No skeleton required. The DNA left in living people is treated as the fossil. The two ghost lineages did not contribute to the human genome the same way. The first interbred directly with the ancestors of everyone alive today, more than 50,000 years ago, leaving about 1% of the modern human genome behind. Roughly the same share Neanderthal DNA occupies. That lineage split off the human family tree around 800,000 years ago. Close to the same window when Neanderthals and Denisovans split from each other. The second ghost is far older and stranger. A so-called super-archaic lineage dating back roughly 1.8 million years. Which never interbred with modern humans directly. Instead, it interbred with Denisovans more than 200,000 years ago, leaving its mark inside 3 to 5% of Denisovan genomes. Modern humans, mainly in Oceanian populations that carry Denisovan ancestry, inherited that ancient DNA as a hitchhiker riding inside DNA we already knew we had. Add these two ghosts to Neanderthals and Denisovans and modern humans carry traceable DNA from at least 4 distinct ancient populations. And that is very likely a flaw, not a ceiling. The bigger point is what it says about the shape of human history itself. The old picture of one human lineage evolving in a straight line has been replaced by something closer to a tangle. Several distinct populations living at overlapping times, interbreeding repeatedly, most of them never leaving a fossil we have found yet. We have physical fossils for exactly 2 of the 4 confirmed contributors. Neanderthals with several near-complete skeletons. Denisovans from only a handful of bone fragments and teeth. The other 2 exist only as statistical shadows in living DNA. Some scientists think the timing of these ghost lineages overlaps with already known fossil groups, like Homo erectus or Middle Pleistocene populations found in Africa and Asia, just not yet linked to genetic evidence. The fossil record, in other words, is missing chapters that DNA is now filling in from the outside. Priya Murjani, the senior researcher on the study, said it plainly herself. It is unclear who these ghost and super-archaic ancestors actually were. That is not a minor footnote. It is the central limitation of the entire method. Trace finds statistical evidence that an unknown population existed and roughly when. But it cannot hand you a skull, a location, or a species name, because there is no physical sample from the ghost lineages themselves to check the model against. Every date and percentage in this story is a model estimate built from patterns in living genomes, with real uncertainty attached, not a direct measurement the way carbon dating a fossil would be. The researchers also note that modern genome databases still skew towards certain populations. So a claim like DNA found in all modern humans partly reflects who has been sequenced so far. Not necessarily every population on Earth equally. They are asking for more diverse genomes and more Denisovan samples specifically because this picture is not finished. Quick recap. A new statistical technique called trace found evidence of two extinct human relatives inside modern DNA without using a single fossil. One contributing about 1% of the genome directly more than 50,000 years ago. The other far older and passed down second-hand through Denisovans. So, signal or noise? Signal. On the finding and the method. This was peer-reviewed and published in Science. Built by a credible team. And it lines up with archaic DNA percentages scientists already trust from Neanderthals and Denisovans. Where you should slow down is the instinct to picture this as two brand new species unearthed. Skeletons and all. What was actually found is genetic evidence of two unnamed ancient populations. Detected entirely from statistical patterns in living DNA. Not a skeleton. Not a species name. Not a finished identity. Call the discovery real and call the identity of these ancestors an honest. Still open question. Subscribe for the discoveries that rewrite the human story before the ink is even dry. Signal from the noise. Every week.